there this year, but I believe all of us did the right thing. But as you know, I came down to Mexico. I met with the incoming president, who's now the president. Believe we established a very good relationship. Our partners in Televisa, they're all very eager for us to return next season, as we are. And I believe we're going to continue that relationship. And I believe that we're going to continue to grow the game of football in Mexico. I think we're going to be great for Mexico because I think it puts it on a stage that I think is great for the country and show all of the assets and the value that Mexico have. But I also think it's great for the NFL and for our fans, most importantly.
Roger, Gary LaPlante, 7 News WHDH in Boston, the news station. I have 2 quick questions for you. First, the league is taking some heat over the canceled halftime news conference. Could you explain the decision to cancel that Maroon 5 news conference?
I wasn't expecting that one. I will tell you that when we have looked at how we do things around the Super Bowl, that includes press conferences, that includes announcements, we have all looked at how the world is changing. And for us, and particularly for our artists in this case, one of the things they really wanted to do is be able to use the new opportunities that we all have through social media and other platforms to be able to reach their fans directly, tease the show a little bit, make sure they understand the inside of what's happening. And I think both the NFL, Pepsi, who's our sponsor of that, and our artists are very excited about that. We think it's innovative. We think it's great for our fans, and we support that. And as we look forward to the future, there may be more changes like that.
Hi, Commissioner. It's Lei Xue from Tencent Sports, home for NFL fans in China. The NFL has seen a significantly growth in our global fan base and demonstrated a commitment to bring the game closer to fans outside of U.S. with the regular season games being played in the UK and Mexico. But where does China rank? And when it comes to international expansion? And what is the league doing in order to improve the accessibility and the growth of the game in China? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Listen, China is a priority market for the NFL. We believe that our game has a great deal of potential to expand, to grow, and to bring new fans into our game. You mentioned that we've had tremendous growth there. We've had double-digit growth this past year in China in our fan base and people engaging with our game. So we're excited about it. We've spent a great deal of time, not only with our international committee, but internally with our staff, just in the last few weeks, talking about some very exciting ideas, not just around a regular season game, but using media and using partnerships to expand our game. I believe that's moving very quickly in a very positive way, and I hope sometime in the next couple of months we're going to have some very exciting announcements.
Hola, comisionado John Sutcliffe de ESPN. On Sunday, the Super Bowl will be broadcast in the U.S. in CBS in English, ESPN Deportes in Spanish. What do you see, taking into account the largest minority market in the U.S. is the Hispanic, just the growth of the Hispanic market in the U.S.? Gracias.
Well, as you know, that has been our fastest growing audience, the Hispanic audience, and it's not by accident. It's one, because I think of their passion and love of the game. 2, it's because of partnerships that we've had, including with ESPN Deportes, our game in Mexico, and our marketing team focusing on bringing the game to those fans and giving them an opportunity to understand it and to develop that passion. And every time I'm out, whether it's in Mexico or in the States, you see fans all over talking about how their love of the game grows. And I hear that a lot from our Hispanic fans as well as others. And so we're going to continue to feed that. We're going to continue to do everything we possibly can to continue that growth and maybe even accelerate it.
Commissioner Dave Gutierrez with NBC News. With regards to the NFC Championship controversy, why did you wait so long in order to address the controversy? And what would you tell, again, those Saints fans, should the Saints be here, and is this game tainted?
As I said to you, we addressed this immediately after the game. We spoke to the coach. The coach announced the conversation and the fact that this play should have been called. And we had several conversations with those clubs and other officials over the next several days. That's our process. That's what we always do, particularly with judgment calls. And so it was handled no differently, other than to make sure that we listened and communicated that to the officials. They did a lot of communicating. We did a lot of communicating for things like Rule 17 and others that came up. As I said to you, over our history, unfortunately, we have had officiating errors and other factors that have been a lot of focus and news, but the game of football is played on the field. And they're played by humans, they're coached by humans, and they're officiated by humans. And that's what our game is. And so we think that we're proud, obviously, of having the Patriots and the Rams here. We understand the disappointment of the Saints fans, the organization, and the players, and we understand that.
Commissioner. This is Clarence Hill with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. The Cowboys haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1996, but Jerry Jones has a role with the Rams in the Falcons Stadium through his Legends hospitality. Is that a conflict of interest, and how do other teams view that, or is that simply just good for business?
Clarence, that's not unusual. He actually had a role through Legends of selling PSLs here in this market and tickets. And so Legends as a company, which Jerry has a significant ownership interest in, has been a very successful marketing company. They have a specialty in how to market new stadiums, and they have been extremely effective. So our clubs have used them if they believe that that's the best option for them, and they have been in many cases.
Dana Jacobson with CBS News. Commissioner, you mentioned the stadium Mercedes-Benz, and Arthur Blank's pricing model that he rolled out obviously has had an impact there. We've seen it now in some baseball stadiums. Also, a few other NFL teams are following suit. Is this fan-friendly pricing model something that you'd like to see other teams try to adapt into their stadiums?
Absolutely. And I think the innovation and I think the courage of Arthur Blank and the Falcons organization, I think they listened to their fans. I think they had the courage to come up with a different pricing structure, and that's something that I think every club has to make those individual decisions. But I would tell you, other teams in our league are watching. They're learning from that, and I believe if they have the right opportunity, they're going to implement that in their communities. But that's a team-by-team decision. That's not something we dictate from the league or anywhere else.
Commissioner Ken Belson from the New York Times. What are you or the league doing to reduce the reliance on highly addictive painkillers, and are you expanding your look at medical marijuana and allowing players to use it during the season?
Well, Ken, we rely on our medical advisors to give us advice. We have a number of them in what we call the pain management umbrella. They look at this constantly. They look at the data. They look at the science, and they make those recommendations to us on that basis. We obviously put this as a huge priority for us, to making sure that we're taking care of our current players as well as our former players. And the union and the NFL have worked very closely on this, and will continue to. We have mutual medical advisors. We have separate medical advisors. And Dee and I spoke about this just in the last 2 weeks. What can we do to continue to look at the science and look at medical advancements to see if we can offer assistance, prevention when necessary, to make sure that we're doing things better.
Commissioner, thank you for your time. President Trump has commented he thinks there are too many penalties called in games these days. How does it impact your efforts to make plays safer when the president is calling for harder hits?
Well, as you know, we have a lot of fans, the president among them, and there are probably a lot of fans who think we do have too many fouls. Ironically, that's not what the issue is that we just heard in New Orleans. What we really try to do is make sure that our game is officiated at the highest levels. If there are fouls, they're important to be called. And we look at that every year of how do we make sure that officiating is not a point of subject or point of discussion either with our fans or clubs or players or anybody else once the game is completed. And that's something that we'll continue to do.
Hey, Roger. Jason Lockenfor, CBS Sports. As you noted at the beginning of your comments, we're here in Atlanta, one of the hallmark cities of the civil rights movement, where so many Americans at various points of time stood up for what they believed in. There's a segment of this society now that believes Colin Kaepernick took some similar actions, and we're now 2 years, I guess, removed from him being in the NFL. Are you comfortable collectively with how the league has responded to that, and do you have any concerns how history might look upon that?
Jason, I've said it many times privately, publicly, that our clubs are the ones that make decisions on players that they want to have on their roster. They make that individually. They make that in the best interest of their team. And that's something that we as the NFL take pride in. Individual clubs make decisions that maybe another club won't do. And they all want to win. And they're all going to do whatever they can to win. So from our standpoint, that's our focus. And that will continue to be our focus.
Roger, Andrew Marchand, New York Post. Just to follow up on that question, why specifically do you think Colin Kaepernick, though, hasn't been signed over the last few years?
I think it's a repeat of what I just said, which is I think if a team decides that Colin Kaepernick or any other player can help their team win, that's what they'll do. They want to win, and they make those decisions individually in the best interest of their club.
Commissioner Goodell, over here in the wheelchair. Dave Stevens with the Disability Channel. On behalf of the Disability Channel, I want to thank the NFL for embracing us this year for 5 games and our first coverage of the Super Bowl. My question for you is, you've had success moving the draft around as an event, and I'm wondering if you would ever consider moving the Super Bowl to a non-NFL city, maybe in Hawaii or something fun, even overseas, just to be crazy, just something outside the box to give the fans that don't have those kind of opportunities.
I know people say I do a lot of crazy things, but that's one that our membership has looked at over the years. And I think it goes back to the question earlier that these Super Bowls are so valuable to the communities that we operate in. We have 32 franchises. And I think we want to reward the fans in those communities. We want to reward those communities that help build great stadiums like Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The fans that help build Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that help support the Falcons, to put those communities on a stage that is unmatched in any event in the world. And so for our standpoint, I think, at least for the foreseeable future, and we're probably 4 or 5 years out on Super Bowl locations, I don't see that changing. I think that's the loyalty we have to our communities and to our fans.
2 more questions.
Commissioner Tom Lydon, Boston 25 News. A Patriots question for you. We're in the 25th year of the Kraft family ownership, and that family has led this team to the Super Bowl 10 times. From your perspective, to what do you attest that level of consistent success?
Well, you're right, and I've said this many times before. You know, we struggled going back in the 80s in New England with a stadium, with the potential of a relocation of the franchise. And that all changed when Robert and Jonathan and the Kraft family bought that team. It changed because he brought that leadership, that passion as a fan, the incredible business acumen that he has. He got a world-class stadium built. He's built a world-class organization that has had unparalleled success over the last 20 years, 25 years. And that's a tribute to the Kraft family. They are extraordinary, not just in the local market, where I think they understand their fans. They have created incredible experiences. They're innovative. But I also can't think of many owners that have been as involved, as impactful on league level matters. Robert and Jonathan both serve on an array of committees. They're engaged in league matters and have made a huge difference. And I can say that personally as commissioner. He's made a difference. They both have made a difference for me.
Last question. Go through far right.
Roger, Ian Rappaport, NFL Network. Two specific questions on two of the more high-profile disciplinary cases. One on Kareem, along with wanting a general update on these. On Kareem Hunt's situation, he's obviously no longer with the team. Will he receive sort of credit, for lack of a better word, for the games he missed when he was released by the Chiefs for his potential suspension? And then for Reuben Foster, whose charge was just dropped in Tampa, do we know whether or not he will be suspended for that?
Let me take them individually because it's not fair to put them together. Kareem Hunt, I think everyone knows that he is, that issue is under investigation. It has been. He is a free agent. If he is signed by a club, I think all clubs understand that he'll go on the commissioner exempt list at that point in time until the discipline process has concluded. Whether there's discipline or not discipline, we would finish the investigation and then make a determination. So that hopefully will happen soon, but we haven't concluded the investigation and we're working to do that. There has been a tremendous amount of progress, though, in that investigation over the last, I'd say, 30 to 60 days. On Reuben Foster, you mentioned that his charges were dropped. We continue our investigation into that. Whether the charges are dropped doesn't necessarily mean there isn't a violation of our personal conduct policy. Reuben and I have met before. We will talk again. But we'll conclude that investigation, make a determination, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. Photo. Trophy.
And that was Commissioner Roger Goodell, his annual State of the League address. As we anticipated, there were a number of questions about that infamous now no call in the NFC Championship game, certainly of interest to the fans of the New Orleans Saints. Shefty, I'm not sure we heard a whole lot new other than what we already knew, and that this will be looked at again in the offseason.
He didn't sound really pleased that Sean Payton disclosed.
No, he didn't.
Almost as if he spoke for the league, and he felt like Sean Payton, when he spoke up, said what needed to be said so the league didn't have to speak on this issue until now. It took a little while to get to the comments about that game in the press conference, but I think that Roger Goodell said it's critical for us to analyze and find a better solution, how to avoid something like that, because that really has hung